My name is Arleen O'Donnell. I'll be facilitating this session. This is the first of 2 half-day sessions on decision support tools. And today's session is focused on real-time reservoir operations decision support tools. Thursday's session, same time, same station, will be focused on forecasting tools and other situational awareness tools. And that session will be facilitated by the Honorable Ms. Julie Kalansky from CW3E. We're going to just cover very briefly what we're doing today on the agenda. Rami is going to go through some housekeeping items regarding the tools we'll use and the Zoom webinar format. And then Chad will talk about the Mentometer function that we'll use towards the end of the morning today to get everybody contributing to the conversation. And then John James will provide both opening remarks and closing remarks. Roger will also contribute to some opening remarks today. So with that, I want to, this crowd is too big to do a round of introductions for everybody, but we can all see your names in the participant list. I did want to introduce the folks who have put the most effort into this for a few months now. As you all know, for the Yuba-Feather FIRO program, we have established work groups for the preliminary viability assessment, and the decision support tool work group leads have put this program together. So that's Kale Nasca from California DWR, Roger Putty, GEI, and Chris Delaney, Sonoma Water. Those three have really put the vast majority of the effort into this program. So we want to thank them for their efforts, and everybody will benefit from them. So next slide, very quickly, and you all should have the agenda, but we're going to rush through these intro remarks and then get right to it. With Rob Hartman facilitating the overview of decision support system needs for FIRO. Rob, it looks like, Rob, you're going to be a moderator and a speaker with Kale, so you'll have your hands full for that. We will have some time for questions at the end before we take a break. After the break, we will go to the next slide. Okay, real-time reservoir operations tools. John is going to give us an overview of the current state of affairs with those, supported by Kale, Jenny Fromm, and Chris Delaney, Tracy Pettit, Maury Miller, and Steve Grinnell. So there's going to be a lot of information on what's out there now, and it's going to be really interesting. And then following their presentation, we will do a wrap-up of day one and talk a little bit about what's to come for day two and get some of your reactions about what we covered in day one as sort of some take-home messages to be thinking about as we get into the forecasting portion on Thursday. And then John and Tracy will wrap us up with some closing remarks. Okay, so Rami is going to go through our housekeeping items regarding how we're going to use the functions in Zoom. So Rami?
Hello, good morning. Okay, so when you first logged in, you should have been unmuted and video not shown. That's just to keep all its presenters ready and willing to present later. It is a little different than the webinar because this is a meeting. The chat is used to ask questions. And so we'll grab all those questions at the end so that the moderator can ask them to the presenters. And then if you want to speak your questions at the bottom under reactions, you can click on that to raise your hand to speak your question. And then on the top right corner, if you want to change your view to have any of the speakers or just the presenters, you can click on that as well.
Okay, thanks, Rami. So the chat you can use for questions or just comments if you want to insert comments there. But we will be pulling together the questions so we can have them all easily viewable by the presenters so they can go through and ask those. And please do use the raise hand function. These webinars can get a little wooden with just a few talking heads. So we do want to hear some voices. So don't be shy, raise your hand, ask a question. You don't have to just be relegated to the chat box. Okay, so I mentioned that at the end, I think most of you have probably done Mentometer. It's a really cool tool to get everybody's feedback and to see each other's feedback. So Chad, do you want to say a little bit about how that's going to work?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to kind of just introduce Mentometer, what it is and why we're using it. it's really used as a tool, and we're going to use it at the end of today to really facilitate feedback. And what the way it's used is, I'm going to share a link, but you can also go to the link that's posted on the screen right now, or use a QR code on the right with your phone. You can go to this website either on the computer that you are currently on for Zoom, or you can use your phone. So you're not necessarily putting Zoom in the background. But really what this does is it's an interactive way for us to facilitate feedback at the end of the day. And we're going to ask a couple questions that hopefully really optimize some of that feedback from the audience. But if you do, I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to go ahead and get to the menti.com and enter the code, or just use the link in the chat. Or I think I sent that directly to one person, so I'll go ahead and send that again. And in order to, just for like a warm up to show you how Mentometer works, I did ask one question today in the beginning of the day, just so you can see how it works. And just to see who do you think is going to win the World Series? And listed here are several options of current teams playing in the World Series playoff. Some options, or one option is not currently in the playoffs, and one option is not even a baseball team. There's also a last option of I don't follow baseball. And this is essentially how Mentometer works. It's a way for everybody to interact with some of the questions that we're asking towards the end of the day. So I'll continue to let some of the answers come in, and we're seeing that the San Francisco Giants are currently favored, which isn't a surprise because we do have a large contingent that's in Northern California. The LA Dodgers are also number 2, and we do have some East Coasters that are voting for the Boston Red Sox. But we can see that the San Francisco Giants are obviously the favorite with 8 votes, and 2 for the Dodgers, 2 for the Red Sox, and 2 people do not follow baseball, and 1 thinks that the Green Bay Packers are so good at football that they're going to win the World Series. So this is essentially how Mentometer works. It's an interactive tool, so the audience can answer questions that'll pop up on the screen for people to see. Every answer will be anonymous, so your name will not pop up with your answers, but we will be able to see some of the feedback or the answers to the questions. And I do want to bring up some of the questions that we will be asking at the end of the day, just so you are able to kind of think about those questions and think about how you might want to answer them as you're listening to some of the presentations and the long agenda that we have today. So the first question that we are going to ask at the end of the day is going to be, what do you think is the most important FIRO decision support need? And this is an open-ended question, so the answers you'll type out the answer and it'll pop up on the screen in a little word bubble, and they will be listed on the screen here, and we'll be able to continue to facilitate some of that interactive feedback from the group. The second question that we are going to ask is going to be, based on the needs of the reservoir operators, what forecast tools / products may be most useful to aid in operator decisions? So this is just to give you an idea of the questions that we will be asking at the end of the day, just to hopefully really get to optimize some of that feedback from the group and make this meeting as productive as possible. So with that, I'm going to stop my share and pass it to the person that's next on the agenda.
Thanks for that, Chad. You did post the link to Menti in the chat box, right? So folks can pull that up if they haven't already. Okay, great.
Yeah, and I'll post that again when we move on to the actual interactive portion.
Okay, fabulous. And I was up late last night watching the Red Sox. So, and I did not vote. Otherwise, they would have had 3 votes. Okay, so Rami, do we have one more slide here before we get into?
Is it showing there?
ISTL housekeeping items is up. So you just have to go to the next slide.
Let me try that again. Let's see.
I think we have intros. I think I introduced John James next for his overview of the session today.
Yeah. So you're not seeing that yet, huh?
Nope. Why don't I introduce him while you're pulling that up? So
okay.
John James has also been quite involved in this program. So he was elected to provide opening remarks because That's his payoff. That's his payoff for all of his involvement. Be careful what you wish for. So John is the water operations project manager at Yuba Water Agency. He oversees flood risk reduction and water supply reliability. He also serves as co-chair of the Yuba-Feather FIRO steering committee and is the agency lead in partnership with the Corps of Engineers projects on the effort to update water control manuals at New Bullards Bar and Lake Orville. Prior to joining Yuba Water, he was at Pacific Gas and Electric, where he focused on switching center dispatch water management operations and hydroelectric energy optimization. Who knew? Before that, he worked as an operational meteorologist, providing global weather forecasting and routing information for commercial cargo ships. He has a bachelor's degree in atmospheric science from UC Davis. So with that, John, I'll hand you the mic.
Great, thanks, Arleen. And thanks to all the participants for being here today, especially with everyone's busy schedules. As with every aspect of the Yuba-Feather FIRO program up to this point, this effort to put together a symposium has been very collaborative in nature, and we hope that you'll find it to be informative and engaging. In the next few minutes, I want to provide some context for the symposium and sort of map where it fits in with the PVA process. The primary purpose of the DST symposium is to support the DST gap analysis. And the gap analysis is a process being designed to investigate what currently exists, what future needs for operating under FIRO will be, and then address how to enhance, adapt, and supplement existing and future DSTs to meet the needs of reservoir operators. With the Yuba-Feather FIRO being a multi-reservoir project, we felt it would be a good starting place to provide a shared information set about existing and emerging DSTs, their function, utility, and provide initial forum for an exchange of information. During the symposium, we hope to better describe how the DSTs currently help decision makers in the Yuba-Feather watershed, how DSTs can be used to support the objectives of the Yuba-Feather FIRO program, and importantly, where they fit into decision-making processes. And finally, all the information gathered will begin the process to identify any gaps as we plan for how to implement FIRO in the Yuba-Feather. Next slide, please. So where does the symposium fit within the PVA and the overall framework of the FIRO program? The symposium will focus on the suite of reservoir management and support DSTs in use and in development. It also aligns with the process of understanding how to take research and apply it to operations as we define the FIRO program as a research and operations program. The DST work team has been defined as cross-cutting, meaning that it can apply in many areas and categories as outlined in the work plan and within the PVA outline. DSTs will be considered as an important aspect to provide input for the FVA roadmap. This symposium and the gap analysis itself are intended as a proactive approach to understanding the needs of the DSTs during the PVA, and the gap analysis will help determine how best to support future project phases, including the FVA, the updates to the water control manuals, and eventually the implementation phase of FIRO. Next slide, please. For a little more detail on the planning and timelines, I'm going to turn it over to Roger from GEI, who's one of the co-leads of the group.
Thanks, John. This gives you a sense of where we've been and where we're going to be going. It's a timeline showing the progression of the work that the DST work group has been in front of. And as many of you are aware, the work groups came together earlier this year, including the DST work group. And some of our initial activities were to get organized, get our charter and our objective and goals identified, and begin to meet and meet with other work groups. We got off to a good, fast start. And one of the things we started on early on was this effort of identifying what is that family of DST tools and other related information that can be available for developing FIRO and the Yuba-Feather system. So that the last few months, we embarked on an information gathering step to begin that. We spent a lot of time reaching out to many of you, the subject matter experts and the decision makers, to understand what tools and technologies are out there that are either in use or are being developed. I think we identified over 30 tools, and we indexed those by type and gathered information on them as well, and learned more from the different folks that support those. And then we also identified those that use the tools and tried to understand what their role was and need was for those tools, and quickly came to the conclusion that moving into a sort of a more of a dialogue to complete our objective of learning what the potential needs might be of the decision makers and users of these tools for using FIRO in these watersheds could be. So that led us to this symposium. So that's where we are here today. And through this kind of knowledge exchange and interchange that we're going to be having amongst us all, we hope to increase, additional awareness about the tools and further explain how they could be applied in the kind of FIRO context, and identify gaps that may exist that need to be addressed moving forward. As we move into 2022, we'll further distill what we've learned today into some kind of workable work plans. We'll identify additional gaps through further discussions. We anticipate some follow-up venues of either workshops or small group discussions where we'll dive deeper into what you took away from today. And then we'll work together to prioritize what those actions are to address the gaps, as well as John mentioned, begin to inform the preliminary viability assessment itself. So our goal would be to document the DST assessment in the PVA, identify an action plan for addressing the gaps, and then consider future assessments moving forward. So as this is a very kind of proactive step at this point in time. We don't know what we don't know, but we're going to learn along the way, and then we may need to consider future iterations of a similar kind of discussion. We'll as the FIRO alternatives are designed and begin to be formulated, we may find ourselves in a similar future discussion, gathering even additional insights about what the DST needs are.